Welcome to this special three-part series of the Big Gorgeous Goals podcast, focused on one of the biggest decisions many product-based entrepreneurs face. Should you go into retail? I'm Julie Ellis, leadership coach, speaker, author of Big Gorgeous Goals, and co-founder of Mabel's Labels, a business we scaled from a small basement startup into major retail channels across North America. And over the years, I've learned something important about retail. From the outside, it looks like a huge milestone for any brand. The shelf placement, the purchase orders, the visibility, the scale. But behind every product on a shelf is an incredibly complex system of operations, forecasting, margins, logistics, inventory management, manufacturing decisions, retailer expectations, and financial pressure that many of us don't see until we are in it. And that's exactly why I wanted to create this series. Not to convince you that retail is the right path, and not to scare you away from it either, but to help you make informed, strategic decisions about whether retail fits your business, your goals, your margins, your operations, and the kind of company you actually want to build. Throughout the series, I'm joined by Kathy Vurinaris, an entrepreneur who is currently building her own product-based business, who is also bringing years of experience from the retailer and consumer packaged goods world. Together, we unpack how to know if you're retail ready, what buyers actually care about, the hidden costs and operational realities of retail, and what it really takes to scale and succeed once you get there. Because growth alone is not the goal. Sustainable growth is. And sometimes the best entrepreneurial decisions are not about moving faster. They're about understanding the path clearly before you take the next step. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome back to episode 3 of this really special series on retail strategy for product-based businesses. Throughout this series, we have been unpacking one of the biggest questions many entrepreneurs face. Should I go into retail? In episode 1, we talked about readiness, how to know if your business is truly prepared for retail, operationally, financially, and strategically. In episode 2, we talked about what it actually takes to break in, the hidden math, the complexity, the systems, the realities behind the shelves that most consumers and honestly, most entrepreneurs never see. But today, we're talking about something entirely different. Because getting into retail is not the same thing as succeeding in retail. And scaling in retail is an entirely different skill set again. One of the things I've learned through entrepreneurship is that growth has a way of exposing every weak system in your business. A weak supply chain, weak forecasting, weak margins, weak operational processes, weak inventory planning, and weak leadership capacity. Growth shines a spotlight on every corner of your business, and retail accelerates that pressure quickly. In this conversation, Kathy Vurinaris and I talk about what sustainable retail growth actually looks like. Not the fantasy version, but the real operational version. We talk about product iteration and why retailers are constantly looking for newness. We talk about the importance of understanding your manufacturing deeply enough to engineer products specifically for different retail environments while still protecting your margins. We talk about the reality that founders often become the most important salesperson in the room because nobody can tell the story of a brand the way we as founders can. And maybe most importantly, we talk again about the numbers, the forecasting, margins, channel strategy, inventory planning, cash flow modeling, investment planning. Because one of the clearest themes in this whole conversation is that retail success is deeply tied to operational precision. And that doesn't always sound glamorous because I think we as entrepreneurs, we love product development, branding, marketing, vision. But scaling successfully often comes down to spreadsheets, forecasting models, operational discipline, and making decisions long before the market forces you to. There's a moment in this conversation where Kathy talks about building detailed financial models across 5 different sales channels before fully expanding into them. And honestly, that level of preparation is exactly what separates reactive growth from sustainable growth. because retail can absolutely grow a business. But scaling too quickly without the systems and all of those other financial pieces, it can also create enormous pressure personally and financially on your business. And I think that's why this conversations matters a lot beyond just retail, because really we're getting into a conversation about scale, about leadership, about preparedness, and about understanding the difference between momentum and sustainability. Ultimately, this is about building a business that can actually support the vision that you have for it. So, whether you're already in retail, considering it someday, or simply trying to build a stronger product based business overall, I think this episode is going to give you a much deeper understanding about what sustainable growth truly requires. Let's dive in. All right, this is our episode 3 about scaling and winning in retail. And today we are talking about how to find sustainable growth and what you need to have in place in order to manage a big retail portfolio of brands and
Yeah.
how you stay on the shelves. So, Kathy, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yay, thank
Glad to be
you.
here.
I know, it's so good.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this conversation because I do think it's so interesting. And I think that, you know, ultimately the theme of this is not that people should not go into retail because it can be a great experience, but it's the how do you know you're ready and how do
Yeah.
you know that you can make it successful when you do step into retail?
Right.
Um, and yeah,
So I have so many thoughts now that we've had started to, you sort of tweaked my brain on this. So one of the things that I would say is you need to understand your manufacturing because I think the opportunity to be successful and scale in large retail is being able to build product that's specific to them so that you maintain the margins you need, but the product isn't any very different than your total portfolio,
right.
right? And also, they're always going to be looking for newness. So then understanding your manufacturing, how to manage the cost of your manufacturing, like almost
Mhm.
reverse engineering so that you are making a product that's almost as good that the consumer doesn't know is slightly different, but you're making the
Mhm.
money you need to being in that retailer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And it is that piece of like, what does newness mean to that retail buyer? Like, it's probably not just saying, and now we have another color,
Right. Right.
you
It's
know?
like for me, adding lace to the waist or making it more feminine or doing a different cut or whatever. Right. So now
Yeah.
it's a brief. So should we do a boy short? Should we do a hipster? Whatever it is.
Mhm.
Um, and so for me, it's, how do I reduce the cost of the manufacturing, but make the product
Mhm.
as desirable to the customer?
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're manufacturing something overseas, that can be a real challenge in terms of turnaround time and product
Yeah.
development work, and even just bandwidth within yourself to actually stay on that path.
Right. I am constantly working on new product, not
Yeah.
knowing when I'm going to launch it. But if
Yeah.
I have an idea, I'm always working with my factory on developing it and getting it to the point where we can go to manufacturing.
Yeah. I would
So,
say that was the same with us. We would be pushing multiple things forward with our
yeah,
manufacturer, and then we would say, let's add this one.
correct.
Let's make a multi-pack. And
Right.
then we could start
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So you can't just rest on having the one product. You're
hmm
constantly thinking about how do I iterate? How do I make it better? What's the next version? What is the
yeah,
customer going to look for? What's the next event that I can
yeah,
create a product for? Right?
yeah,
Like, yeah. So,
yeah. Well, and so in terms of like ways of going to retail, do you like a lot of people use distributors?
yeah.
Do you find that you see that with larger sized retailers?
Yeah, but it's funny because the person that I had doing sales for me was part of a distributor, uh, and I negotiated that for every closing conversation, I was part of the conversation.
Yeah. 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 I would say the same. When we had sales, we had a sales agent in the US,
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
did that as opposed to a distributor because we would take on the day-to-day management afterwards.
right,
But I was the face of the brand that went to those sales meetings. I was not an expert in selling retail, but I could tell the story of like,
right,
working till midnight in that basement as we started the brand and what it was like, when the host of The View stood there and said, I could not live without these. And, that was my
right,
part of the story to tell. So I was an
right,
important part.
right. And I feel
Yeah.
that I am as well, right? Like
Yeah.
I own the story, so
Yes.
I feel like so yeah. That's the other thing I think that founders have to understand, that they're so integral. They can sell the brand better than anybody else,
Yes. Always.
always. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's why the brand exists, right?
And why it's been successful.
Correct. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think don't ever forget that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I mean, so you learned all of this because you came up in the retail world.
Yeah,
Um, I learned it because I was fortunate to hire a really great consultant when we went to retail, who'd had experience both on the brand side and on the retailer side, which is not always common.
yeah,
And, he really worked with us to help with the sales process, the product build, like all of the things. And
yeah,
then I feel like I learned so much through Fire and the School of Hard Knocks.
yeah.
But how do people learn who want to go to retail? Because I think that it is, like when I started out, I did not know what I didn't know. Like a hundred
Right.
percent, I
Yeah.
had no idea it would be as technical and complicated as it was.
Right. Well, I would say that that is something. It's important to either hire a consultant or bring somebody on internally who comes from that world,
Yeah.
right? Um, and whether it's somebody who's under operations, or I think that that's the position
Yeah.
that to me makes the most sense, to bring in an expert with
Yeah.
experience in retail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would
So
say then on my team, eventually, the consultant faded to more of a at the end of the phone kind of contract from being
right,
it really involved. I had a director of sales and I had an operations manager. And the
right.
operations manager was kind of slash analyst. We
Oh,
called them
yep,
an
yep.
operations manager, but he managed a very big spreadsheet for each retailer that showed us,
Correct.
velocity in stock,
Right.
where,
Yes.
yeah, all of those
Yeah.
pieces that we needed to manage.
That's like, it's like your retail success manager,
Yeah, that's probably a better title. Yeah.
right?
Although
And
he did also help with product coming.
oh,
So it was actually like, and this is where I tell you that I think it's hard in a small environment to like get the people you
absolutely.
need, right?
Absolutely. And I'm
Mhm.
so fortunate that I have the background that I do, right?
Definitely. I'm sure you're going to get a
Yeah.
lot of calls after this. Uh, but I do
Yeah.
think that like it is like I said earlier, it's a great channel.
Yeah.
But it takes care and precision and
Yes.
and it is not just like running a direct to consumer business. And I think that's the
No.
biggest kind of takeaway that I'm getting out of this conversation with you is, you've got to go into it with your eyes wide open.
And it's really the attention to detail and
Hmm.
knowing what details to follow, right?
Hmm.
Because so much of what you would look at for direct to consumer would be very different than what you look at for big retailers,
Yeah,
right? And
sure.
so it's like you have to use different parts of your brain,
Yeah, it's
because it's
different metrics, different
totally
KPIs.
numbers. It's very numbers driven, right? And if
Hmm.
you're not good at numbers, ooh, watch out.
Hmm.
Hire somebody fast who does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think that's a great entrepreneur lesson, period. Is,
Yes.
if the numbers aren't your thing, hire somebody fast who does, because
Yes.
the numbers are really that foundation that tells you everything, right?
Absolutely. And if you ever want outside investment, your numbers have to be really buttoned down.
Yes.
That's the
Yeah.
first place they'll look, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
unfortunately, with direct to consumer businesses or product based businesses, I'll call them, the investors for us are fewer and farther between than other kinds of businesses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even though, if I think about my product, the lifetime value of my customer is really quite large, right? Because they could
Yeah.
use my product for 30 years,
100%.
right?
Yep.
And so, and that's how I'm trying to sell it,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So,
And unfortunately, you don't have 30 years behind you to confirm
no, no.
that.
But I have
Right?
statistics about the
Of
category that
course.
show that, right?
Right.
And so,
Yep. Well, and so, but that's interesting because that's where it's like, you know, you get into this, like, I feel like I'm making these numbers up, but you are to some degree, you're forecasting based on a set of assumptions and research that you've done, right? So
yeah,
here's the research, you know that this is true, and
right,
therefore, for your brand, it means this.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I have to frame it.
Absolutely it is
Yeah,
because
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
So,
and then the second truth is you will never ever meet any forecast you ever make. You will either fall
right,
short or exceed.
right.
That's just the
So
way it
true.
goes. You will
Absolutely.
never hit it to the penny or the
No,
number.
no,
Exactly,
no.
right? I mean, that's just how the world works.
Right. And forecasts, like to me, are they're numbers that are supposed to change almost, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, you're
Yeah.
constantly adjusting all of the things that fall below the forecast as the forecast changes. So it's like a moving target constantly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the other things I see with people getting into retail, which is like quasi, and that's
Yeah.
around, you get onto an e-commerce site. It might be of a big retailer or
Yeah.
an e-commerce only retailer, but the sort of drop shipping where they never take your product into their warehouse and you're just shipping it from your side.
Yeah.
Um, what do you know about that?
I've done a little research about that because in my space,
Yeah.
there is one that's very big that does that.
Yep.
But so I'm, because of my margins again, like
Yep.
I already know the cost to ship anywhere in Canada. I've done all of that research because I do that. So because I on our direct to consumer, we offer free shipping under
Yep.
$70, over $70. So I know that how much like this our standard box will cost and all of those things. And I plugged it into. So what I did was I worked on a fully built out margin on 5 channels of business, right?
Okay.
So formatted
Yeah.
retail, like just non-franchise retail, independent retail,
Yep.
uh, you know, Amazon,
Yep.
direct to consumer managed by our website. So those are the 5. And
Yep.
so within that, with all of our direct to consumer, I know the cost of each unit that we ship. It's
Right.
actually come in, I built it in. So I know what the cost of that is. So for that kind of, so in my space, it's
Right.
well.ca, right?
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
I know what the cost of that is.
Right.
And
But
so
I
I'm
am
doing
amazed
fine.
at like the precision with which you just said, I evaluated 5 channels, I built a spreadsheet, I looked at that,
Yeah.
and I think that that is what can help you decide, here's channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. It's a 3-year,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
5-year strategy to even
I
think about
actually did.
accessing those, right?
That's exactly what I
Um,
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would really encourage people to build those good forecasts because
Yeah.
it seems a little boring, it also is very informative, or not even boring, but intimidating is maybe a better word,
Yeah.
to build something like that. But like finding that, CFO or a financial analyst who can kind of build you a model that you can then work with as you
Right.
get better pricing, find new factories, like all of the pieces that go into the journey.
Yeah. Like I already know how much money do I need to make to actually execute into another channel, or do I need outside investment and how much money do I need, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and that's based on monthly sales over 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
And
it.
most people don't even think that way, but that's my background as well, right? I had to do
Yes.
quarterly forecasts
Yep.
for 13 categories of business that I did.
Right.
My financial deck was 140 pages,
Right. Right. So
right?
the deep dive is something you're very accustomed to. And I
Correct.
will say, like, one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation with you is that I know this about you. Every time we talk and I learn the things that you're analyzing and looking into and have on a spreadsheet, I'm amazed at your preparedness.
Thank you.
Right. And so, but it is that, like, why, and we all bring our own backgrounds to these,
Yeah,
to our
absolutely.
entrepreneurial ventures, right?
Yeah.
And there's real value in the background that you have. And so I'm so happy today that you have shared with us all the things about retail and what to think about, what to consider, and when to go for it and when to say not yet, or maybe
Yeah.
not at all.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people have built, like I said, huge businesses direct to consumer only.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah.
Good. Well, thank you
Thanks.
so much, Kathy. I'm
Oh,
gonna
you're
I'm
welcome.
gonna tag your site and your info in the show notes, and we'll
Thank
also
you.
include a glossary of all the fun retail terms so that people can look that up. But I thank you for
Amazing.
joining me for this series about
Uh,
selling into retail.
oh, you're welcome. It was my pleasure. And
Great.
everybody out there who's considering it, good luck.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, bye.
Thanks so much for joining me in this special series on retail strategy for product-based businesses. I hope these conversations gave you a more honest, practical, and strategic look at what it really takes to grow through retail. And perhaps even more importantly, how to decide whether retail is the next right step for your business at all. One of the things I've learned through entrepreneurship is that there is no single path to building a successful company. Some brands thrive in retail. Some thrive direct to consumer. Some build hybrid models. And some discover that scaling sustainably means saying, not yet, or even not for us. All of those decisions can be smart ones. The key is understanding the realities behind the opportunity so you can build intentionally instead of reactively. If this series sparked questions for you about growth, leadership, scaling, retail strategy, or the operational side of building a product-based business, I'd love to support you further. You can learn more about my work, coaching, speaking, and the Big Gorgeous Goals framework at www.julieellis.ca. And if you're a founder navigating growth decisions in real time, you can also learn more about my Pocket Coaching program. It's a voice note-based coaching designed to give entrepreneurs strategic support, perspective, and decision-making guidance exactly as you need them. Because sometimes the most valuable thing in business, it's not another course or another framework. It's about being able to have the right conversation at the right moment. If you enjoyed this series, I'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, or share it with another entrepreneur who's trying to decide what growth should look like for them. Thanks again for being here. And until next time, keep chasing your big, gorgeous goals.